Product development in the life cycle. Our objectives. How companies find and develop new product ideas. There's a defined steps in the new product development process, and there's stages in the product life cycle and how marketing strategies can change during this life cycle. Hey, we all have a life cycle ourselves, and so does a business, and so does a product. I will split this lecture into two parts, and so here we go. Samsung, all right, Samsung users, it's your turn to praise yourselves. You know how much I love Apple, but I love Samsung in the same regard. And I don't know if many of us can remember what Samsung really was. Now, back in the 80s and the early 90s, Samsung, first of all, is a behemoth of an organization. They are South Korea's prize and probably still their largest company for that country. They make ships. I mean, they're shipbuilders. They're product engineering, their software engineering, their electronics engineering, make semiconductors. Their consumer side is just a division of what Samsung does. So, back in those times, you bought a Samsung like a VCR, yes, the telephone, even have those, not cell phones, but old computers. You bought Samsung electronics if you could not afford what brand? Absolutely. If you could not afford a Sony, Sony ruled the day in consumer electronics, certainly in the 1980s and even going into most of the 1990s. And so that's what you bought. You bought yourself a Samsung. I just can't afford a Sony. Let me get by with a cheap VCR. So the company is and has been largely run by the Samsung family. And in 1995, the CEO basically said, I'm tired of being laughed at. I don't want to be the last. I want to be the best in the market. So they took all their consumer electronics off the market. Now that is a bold move. And the theory was we're going to focus on engineering components. We're going to see how we make the best technology for other companies that we're doing and put them into our own. And what he did is what we've learned in marketing. He's repositioned the product, took it off for so many years that you almost forgot about Samsung. And when they came back, we'll see the results. Now, Apple and Samsung love to fight each other in the daytime. You stole this from me, we don't like you. But for many years, Samsung has been some of the leading suppliers for the iPhone processors, back to the A9 processor and all the way through the what we see today for the iPhone 11. They basically make $80 off every iPhone sale. So yes, we fight in the day and we cuddle up at night. It's kind of an old war strategy right there. So, repositioning. I don't know if anyone remembers the flip phones, but they were so cool because they made that great noise when you just closed it, a little clapping noise, and you could just whip it out real quick and actually talk to somebody. So, several years of product and development research, Samsung repositioned its entire line and brand. Now, they had one goal when they came back during all the time of their engineering and research. We are going to overtake Sony as the world leader in consumer electronics. So 2003, here comes their new line. Did they meet their expectations? Within 10 years of re-entering the market, Samsung did overtake Sony as the world leader in electronic products. Who has a Samsung TV? Absolutely. They're fantastic. They are number 2 in smartphone sales. And who's number 1? Well, that would be Apple. Still, 29% market share, very, very largest appliances. I don't know if anyone has a Samsung refrigerator, dishwasher, or washer and dryer. I mean, they really make some cool stuff. In fact, Consumer Reports, which is a great magazine to have. Again, if you want to cut through all the marketing mess, Consumer Reports, as I've said in class many times, will buy the products, they get no sponsorships, and they give you the best ratings. And they've rated their large appliances for many years. I have not seen it this year as A grade, as the grade of an A. So, and years ago, through a stretch, they were putting in $40 billion in a period of 5 years, and I think that's 5 to 9, in product in development. And so they really did a great job. They used to have the wow factor, which meant it's got to wow us to get past in our product into commercialization. There are the top 10 brands worldwide. Again, these may fluctuate from year to year, but Samsung's certainly in the top 10. New product development. Why do we do it? Well, it's the lifeblood of an organization. We need new products. Original products, of course, we have new and improved. All right, we've got to get our consumers excited about buying our modifications, new brands. It's the lifeblood, and of course, services as well. We understand the service sector is a huge economy. What new services can we add to our business line? The development process, this could be a great career for many of you, certainly in the creative side or in the engineering side. We have to understand consumers, all right? It is all of the behavior that we go through, the markets, the competitors, and we want to develop a product that's going to be different than others. So it has to deliver superior or just an amazing value to our customers, because if a new product comes out, you have to switch from something you're using to this new product. And as we have seen in this class, that is not an easy thing to do, change. Super easy though, right, on new product development? 70% failure rate within 2 years of all new products. Now, that's a huge number. Most businesses can't last to year 5 or 6. That's a 60% failure rate, but this is even harder. And look, there's some pretty big companies out there that mess up. Does anybody remember Web TV? This was a great deal for whoever sold it. Again, I forget the names of the company, but Microsoft bought that, I believe, in 1997, 98, the late 90s. Again, the internet is coming out. Now we can use it. It's accessible. Went from a science and Department of Defense network structure to the entire world. And Bill Gates and company bought Web TV for somewhere around $400 million between cash and stock. Do you have one? Of course not. That never took off. It was just a way of routing a keyboard to your TV and you could surf the internet. Now, some say that maybe Microsoft's vision was the internet on every TV, and Steve Jobs' vision was the internet in everyone's pocket via your phone. Coca-Cola messed up. Oh, another one on Microsoft, the Zune player. We've talked a little bit about that. It was big, bulky, and of course it was not compatible with iTunes. This is in the neighborhood of a $500 million investment for Microsoft, which again, a giant company. Certainly didn't put them into bankruptcy by any stretch of the imagination. But even the big companies, my friends, mess it up. There's Sony's Betamax. Now, you have to live back in the 80s, such a great decade, where recordings are just coming out. You've got movies coming out, and our Sony went with the smaller movement of beta, and all the American market went VHS. And so I had a beta player, and here we go. This lost a lot of money for Sony. They had to basically reconfigure to the VHS format. So, not an easy process. Big companies do it, and big companies can also lose on that. Here are the steps. Major steps in new product development. We have idea generation, we have idea screening, we have the concept development, marketing strategy. I mean, it is a long process, and we're going to flesh this out one by one. Idea generation. Hey, this is where the creatives come together and see what's trending, but what can we create that consumers are going to love? Maybe thousands of ideas. Where do we get them from? Internal sources, internal social networks, hopefully the sales force that's actually communicating and employees with customers on a daily basis. We have external ideas, many times customers. It's called crowdsourcing. can come in. And of course, we always look at our distributors, our competitors, our suppliers, and just have the eye of what's going on in the marketplace. Employee involvement. I hope you are able to have some sort of employee involvement throughout your career. Many times, as an organization, Tarrant County College neglects that. Years ago, we had Proctor U that was forced on every student who was taking an online class, that it had to be literally, these guys are actually proctoring exams, and it didn't work well. A lot of money was spent, and our students were just so frustrated because they could not take their tests unless they scheduled it. It was a big mess. So employee involvement. If our employees don't know what we're trying to do as an organization, that's not a great, it's not a great communication flow, is it? Google X. This is also an offshoot of, I believe, Moonshot, and in the early days of space development, it was called Skunk Works. This is where the creatives come in, almost secretive at some point, where we are looking well into the future, what kind of products and services will be that customers will want. And I hope that you can have a company like that to work for, that's that interesting and creative. And the idea with the Google X is that, hey, get an idea as fast as possible. Let's not take a year to think of it and produce it. Get it to commercialization. Really not commercialization. Get it to product concept and watch it fail. And fail a bunch of times so we can figure out how to get it done better the next and next time. And that's literally where Google Mail came out of. Some people in their deep think tank said, we need our own email. What if we just put it in this, in this route? And Google Mail came out very, very fast. So that's what some cutting edge companies do to get that new product out there, to get those ideas. Again, crowdsourcing. Now, crowdfunding is where we try to get money, but crowdsourcing is where we invite a broad band of online communities, people to follow in the new product development process. Selected ideas get rewarded. Years ago, PayPal came up with PayPal Galactica. They believe that space travel will be imminent in the next 20 to 40 years. And, for those who go on space travel, again, that is for like commercialization. For if you're wealthy enough to buy the ticket, you'll be able to travel around the moon, I guess, or even deeper in space. You'll need money. And so hard to bring quarters, hard to bring dimes and nickels and a few dollar bills. So your PayPal account will be the official money in space. Now that is very, very forward thinking. Idea screening. All right, we have 3,000 raw ideas. 300 worked, 120. You can see, my friends, how it gets down to one commercial excess. So again, how do we screen? Real. Is there a real need for that product or purchase? That's a point we can look at. Can we win? Does the product have a competitive advantage? Do we have the resources to produce it? Just as we have the supply chain in place, there's so much that goes on with a new product or service. And again, will it provide the profitability and the growth? And very large organizations right now believe that may be very long term. If we'll look at Uber and Lyft, they're really not making a profit, and they have not made a profit. But that doesn't mean they won't in 5 years from now, and that may be our main mode of travel. Who knows? Big time thinking. All right, we found your idea. Can we get a concept of that? And that is, we draw it out. We've got to be able to show that to our consumers, start putting it in their brain. Hey, this is what this is going to look like. So the image right now, we are literally trying to position that product in the conceptual stage. So what will our customers think about that product? Will it be very high end? Is it going to be low end but very high value, easy to buy, etc., etc.? All that begins in the conception stage. Then we try to develop it. All right, how many are excited about this Google car? Now, this was done many years ago, right? But we're trying to say, well, if we had a self-driven car, autonomous driving, we've got to make something look like that. So find out how attractive it is, and then design. Now, That was an Apple car. Apple has stated that they are not in the car business. But, that doesn't mean they won't change their mind. And we test it. All right? So we get a group of our target market, who we believe our target market's going to be. All right, and we're going to go ahead and stick with the idea of the autonomous driving right in here. Okay, so it's got to be symbolic, physically. Customers are going to have to get their idea that this is the new product that we're asking them to buy, and then we want to change their reactions. Hey, it's interesting, but I hate that design. Okay, but they may still see the need, and they see the value long term. Well, let's keep talking about driverless cars. All right. 44% of U.S. drivers would consider to purchase a driverless car within 10 years. Now, this data was pulled out in about 2016, so we're talking about 2026, maybe 2025. Now, 55% would not, of American consumers and American drivers right now, would take an assisted. All right, I still have my steering wheel, I can still take it, and if I get scared. 20% say they would pay the money for it. All right, so we're, okay, I would like it. Now, will I really pay for it? Ford, and I have not checked the data, but by next year, believe they were going to start mass producing driverless cars. So we can see the need, and then we've talked this over in class. Hey, what's your car doing in your home right now? It's just sitting there. When we were actually having classes on campus, your car was simply in the parking lot. What if that car drops you off? It went to maybe help your brothers or sisters or mothers or father, parents, siblings. They could then use it. It could drop them off. That car could then go to a cool Amazon store in the future, grocery store, which we'll look at during this unit lesson. Load up with food, groceries, and then come pick you back up from your classes and take you to work, and then go back home, let someone unload those groceries, come pick. I mean, a lot of cool stuff that could happen. I mean, just conceptually. So we are going to go to some sort of driverless car in the future. How long? We're going to find out. Now that might be different. The Tesla Corporation. When Tesla, Mr. Musk, came out with his idea, the story goes that Elon Musk wanted to say, I think I can make a fully electric car and have it perform as well, if not much better than a normally gasoline aspirated carburetor type of car. And so that was their mission. Their mission wasn't necessarily to be a large company. So there it is. Consumer Reports tested this several years ago on the Tesla S. They have a road test in their headquarters in Connecticut that they test every car with. This was the only car that received a perfect 100 on its score. Now, my Porsche 911, which I'll get probably at the age of 75 years old, and I'll Thelma and Louise it after that, but it scored like a 97, so it was very close. So yes, did the goal come through? They did. They hit it. $100,000 plus for that car. Now, trying to commercialize something that amazing is not easy, certainly because the supply chain is difficult to get every single part that they need, but they've been doing it. The next jump in this equation was to make a mass market fully electric car. I mean, there's no gas. This is not a hybrid. You just plug it into the special Tesla spots around the area. So it was pegged at $35,000. They could not hit that number. As of today, I believe you can hit one for $39,900. But if you want the full features of everything that's possible to do, it's right around $60,000. So, and they are selling. So there we go on our concept to commercialization. Again, do we think about marketing strategy once that product is constructed and made? The strategy is going on in the idea phase, really. Who's the planned value? Where's our target market? What type of sales? The marketing mix strategy. This is, again, if you're the numbers type of person in your career, this would be a good place to have one. We're doing lots of projections for our product or service. Of course, there's our analysis. Now there's another Google car, I believe that's on a Toyota Prius, self-driving. The sales, the cost, the profit, we want to see, is this a worthwhile idea? Because we know 70% fail within 2 years. And so we want to make it and turn it into a workable market offering. And then we test market it. We don't have to, but this is a stage that can happen, I should say. This is where we introduce into a realistic market setting. Now, we live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and that is the Margaret Hunt Hill Bridge going into Dallas, one of the bridges. And Dallas has always been a very interesting test market because we're right in the middle of the United States. We have a lot of influx of people who have moved from different areas of the United States. And we know how well our economy is doing, which we've talked about many times. So it's a very good test market. If it could work in Dallas, the organization may say, hey, it can work throughout the United States and possibly beyond. So this gives us an idea of the success before full-scale introduction. If it fails here, I mean, if people in our area aren't going to buy the food product, whatever it is, will they buy it anywhere else? And again, because we are such an amazing economy for the last 25 years. It is a time-consuming process. This is why some companies can't afford to test market. They have to go with their best guess and move forward. Because as you test it, now you may test and redesign, you are showing your competition, and of course, depending on the organization, if it's a large organization that's test marketing, someone else is going to see that and say, hey, we need to jump on this right now. And of course, more the delays. We've got lots of money in here. Do we just hit one area, or is it best to whatever geographic area we're going to hit, like maybe just the South or the Southwest of the United States? Test marketing can work. It also does have some of those disadvantages of showing our poker hand to everyone else. And then we look at commercialization. We've thought about the product. We've had all sorts of interesting ideas. We've gone to a concept. We've gone to development. We've gone ready for commercialization. When do we roll it out? Very interesting times. Would we want to roll out a brand new electronic product? Maybe it's an upgraded laptop or a phone in January. Yeah, probably in January, you're more of your business to business products could be unveiled, especially in industrial areas. But consumer products, yeah, we're all kind of broke, right after Christmas, and it takes us a while to get more momentum up, and so we want to look when we would have it, the fashion before the season. So we know fall fashion certainly comes out somewhere in June, maybe even late May, on the top of the fashion there. So always before the season. Spring fashion literally came out in December or even November. At least you got a sneak peek of what's going to be the thing to buy. Your laptops, your iPads, back to school. Back to school generates $85 billion worth of spending. So that's heavily hit in the month of August. We have usually, Steve Jobs always rolled out that iPhone somewhere in October. Why? Well, we're getting ready for that Christmas shopping. And so everything has to be ready and in stores so your consumer can buy. Yeah, it's just you have to look and see where, when to hit it. I believe there was a Kickstarter funding program for a cooler many years ago it was a cooler where you can put your drinks in, and also had some sort of a radio or stereo on it, boombox, and put your phone up to it and Bluetooth in. It was really cool, and it launched in January, and of course nobody bought into it. They didn't see the need. It was too cold. They weren't thinking about going to the lake, going to the beach. They took it off, and they relaunched it back in up to about May, June, and the product took off because people were in the mindset, yes, this could be great. Kickstarter is a rewards-based crowdfunding, so if you basically funded the company your $50 or $100, whatever it was, you would get the cooler yourself. but they could, we could understand that in the summer, but the wintertime they had to literally take it off of Kickstarter because no one was buying into it. So yes, when do we march it through? And we are now at the product life cycle. Again, every business, and I guess every person, we all have a life cycle, right? We're born, we go to adolescence, we mature, adulthood, and then at some point we go into, a decline stage, and there we are. Well, every product does too. We have an introduction. We've just trying to commercialize that product, all right? It's launched. We want to get people to buy it. We've got growth, which means, yes, sales are happening well, and people like it. And now we start to see some profitability. Maturity, we've got a product out there that people like. What do we do in every stage? And of course, at some point, sales will fail. Maybe the product is just outdated by technology and it goes away. So let's look at these phases of the product life cycle. All right, the introduction stage. This is a very expensive stage, and this is where most of your marketing costs are. And production costs are going to be right in here. You're trying to produce, you're trying to launch this product. You have to create tremendous awareness. Probably, but definitely you'll have to lead up to the product. So you'll have to have those anticipation marketing for, hey, look what's coming soon. All right. Usually in this stage, the sales are probably low because you're trying to get new adopters. You're trying to get the innovators here. You're trying to get the evangelists to buy that product. Also, depending on what product it is, if it's the traditional products that go through many retailers, you got to find the distributors. So costs are very high. Again, production costs are high, marketing costs are high, so profits are low to negative. So this is the tough stage. Do we make it to the next stage? And if we certainly don't have enough customers, then these are tough decisions, my friends. All right, so we're still in the introduction, but we are positioning the product. Remember, we position that product in the concept stage. It has to be long-term strategy. There could be an effort. Well, what if we just cut prices right now? Maybe more people will buy. What are our margins? We are going to look at pricing as one solid lecture, and we'll look at what happens when you cut your pricing, because obviously when you cut it, you're cutting your profitability, and it's very difficult, if not impossible, in today's marketplace to re-raise prices. So that could be, you're backfiring by cutting the cost too quick, especially for a pioneer, that we were going to be an amazing product or service that we have, and now we're almost giving it away. So some of the decisions that are made in here. Introduction stage, this is where so much doesn't make it. 75% of new products do not make it out of this stage. Now, we picked on Microsoft. We didn't pick on it. We just used it as a case study. What about Apple? Have they made any products that were just, not accepted at all? Yeah, they did. Again, there we go. Back to the 80s. When Apple came out, they were noted solely as a computer for education, because that's where they hit their market with very young kids and high schools. And so the business world did not take Apple seriously for literally up until about 2000. It was always known as a computer for creative professionals, sure, and students, but can it really churn out data and spreadsheets? And so Apple Lisa came out in mid-80s, and for the computer that Steve Jobs did to make it an Apple for what businesses wanted, to kind of put that in that phrase, the way he wanted it to look, it came out to 10 grand. Now, you're saying 10 grand, that's a lot of money. Let's go back, oh my gosh, 30 years ago. Say it ain't so. That could easily be $20,000 in today's price range, today's market. And again, it didn't do anything. There was your 3.5 disc. It didn't have a hard drive. I mean, it had a hard drive, but very, very limited capabilities, and not even a printer. So yeah, it did make it to commercialization, And I do remember seeing it in some of the computer stores that are non-existent today, but it went out very, very fast. So what happened? What happened? But, hey, we liked it, but our customers didn't like it. Maybe we hit the wrong target market. Why so many fail? Maybe the positioning strategy was very weak. Perhaps we just didn't create the awareness, and no one really knew about the product. We skimped on those marketing costs, which are very important and are very costly during this stage. Competition could have been too strong. All right. Maybe we gave up too soon. The adoption process that we have gone through in this course, it just took a lot longer time. The customers maybe did not see the relative advantage of switching, but they were going to have to later on. Well, look at what Walmart did in this situation on a concept they maybe gave up too soon on. And there's the Apple Newton. That was with, I believe Scully was the CEO at the time, the person who had to fire Steve Jobs, and I think his name was Steve Scully as well. And when Steve came back to the company in the right about those mid 90s, Scully said, I think it's John Scully right now, but I'm just getting OCD. He said, "Look, Steve, look what I got here. I think this could really make it. It's the Newton, and these are what day planners, iPods, crazy phones look like in those middle 90s. And Jobs, one of his first things he did, he said, you know what? Let me see that. This is the first thing I'm going to kill. We're not making this. Because you had to put a little stylus out there, and it was your little calendar popped up and your contacts. And Scully said, why'd you do that? And he says, you wanted a stylus with a pen, and my stylus should be your hand. Okay, this is not what is acceptable to me. And of course, out of that technology did come the first iPods. So we are looking at the introduction stage. Let's go back to our driverless cars since we've been talking about that. How long will that adoption process be? A fully driverless autonomous car. I mean, not driver assisted. That maybe is a different generation needed. Because many of you in class have said, oh no, man, that's not for me. I like my car. Hey, we love our cars. When the internet came out, 1993, 94, 95, when it first came out, people did not rush to it. People were afraid of it. They did not want to put their financial information out there. They really didn't want to buy from it, for the most part. They loved the traditional relationships they had with salespeople in traditional retailing stores. And it had a very hard time for the first 2-3 years. What was the problem? And then, of course, we had a dot-com crash in the late 90s where every dot-com company, say eBay, Apple, Amazon, but really pure plays like Apple and Amazon made it because they had a defined business model. That was it. I don't think the generation was in place. We had the traditionalists still ruling the day and older baby boomers. And so now you'd say, what are you talking about? So maybe these are going to be your kids, my friends, that have the driverless car. Maybe this is not the generation yet, but we know it's going to exist. So anyone who has one right now would definitely be an innovator. And it still may be in the full testing stage, but we know that they are out there. Now, wait a second. Do you want to drive that? Have that drive you around? Or would you like to have this, the Tesla S? I'm going to see if this video will work for us here. So this is Dubai. Dubai wants to make autonomous driving heir apparent by 2030.
Welcome. Where would you like to go today?
Not too bad. Pretty cool. (2030) 25% of Dubai's transportation to be completely autonomous. Oops, and that's a YouTube video of a Tesla crashing. So, that looks so much cooler. It did have the steering wheel, so I guess you could jump up and turn it if need be. Keep an eye on this, my friends. You're the generation that's going to see this and come to fruition. Other things in the product life cycle that may still be in the introduction stage in high tech. I think wearables. Again, many of you have a wearable watch, but most of this now we see a tremendous amount going to healthcare, and that where we can monitor health. If you hit the right number of steps per day, insurance companies are giving rebates of $20 to $30 to $40 a month back on your insurance premiums, and so 10 years, 65 plus will represent 22% of the United States. Right now, it's about maybe 12%, and so all sorts of monitoring going on health because we need better health. So keep your eye out for wearables. All right, we made it to the growth stage. Fantastic, 75. So we got 25% have made it. All right. Sales are climbing quickly. Adoption process, who's buying it in the growth stage? Those early adopters, those mainstream. We can kind of see the graphs of when we get to profitability. Obviously, in the product development cycle, it's not even out there. So we are investing tremendous amounts of investment. It gets a little bit lower in the introduction stage because we're still trying to find distributors and we're tremendous marketing costs. But now we see that vertical rise through profits and, of course, through sales. And so marketing costs are still high because we're still creating that awareness and still getting that buzz through, and of course starting profitability. Now, what is a critical mass? I looked this up on the internet years ago, and best guess scenarios from marketing experts would basically say for a company to keep going, you need at least 18% of expected market share for success. So if you entered into a market and you said, wow, I think our total market share in this area could be $100 million. And so we would look at that and say at some point we've got to hit $18 million to get 18% in this area to be successful. Again, how long of time that is, basically that's got to be somewhere in this growth stage in here. Did we hit our expected, are we close to it? Might be a good benchmark to think that this product can go on. Well, is anyone going to come mess with us in the growth stage? Yeah, all of a sudden, competition looks at what's been done. It's going to increase. So what do? Prices may lower because your competition has come in and lowered their price of a similar product. So again, here's a decision-making point here. Do we penetrate the market? That means we lower that costs and try to get as many shareholders as we possibly can. I'm sorry, market share. So we spend on promotion, improvements, and distribution. We really just try to blow this thing out as hard as possible. Or do we maintain high profits? That's called, we can penetrate the market or we could skim the market. That people are buying it, we are able to maintain a high price, and we're getting a nice amount of profits. Growth stage, I think 3D printers are still in the growth stage. I think this is something you could look at in your career. How is this going to change manufacturing? Every item right here was made on a 3D printer, and remember, 3D printers don't just print resin. Okay, they can print a variety of materials, to concrete, to steel, and of course to literally living tissue. Now those are very high-tech biotech printers, but we're seeing a heart that could literally be printed on a 3D printer. I mean that's the goal. You could somehow print organs. Interesting. So there you go. There's the heart right there. Now I don't know if it's working or functional, but that's the end game. This is Big Rep 1. It can literally print a three-dimensional 1 meter printer. So 1 meter high, 1 meter long, 1 meter in width, and you can get some very wild things going on. So I think 3D printing may change it. Hey, 10 years from now, maybe 10 years from now, maybe it's a few more years from now, when the after parties at one of your houses, and we're all coming there about 2 a.m. And you say, oh my gosh, man, I don't have enough cups. I don't have enough plates. I need to go out and buy that. Well, you just cook your 3D printer and let that print out your plates. How many of our typical household items that we spend right now will we be able to reproduce in 3D printing, and hopefully at a fast rate? Right now, it is painfully slow to watch some 3D printers, but on this one right here, it's only $40,000 for the Big Rep 1. Perhaps the price has come down by now. You can get that out, printed out pretty quickly. But as speed and efficiency increase, you're going to see a lot of our consumption products that we use on an everyday basis, disposable as well, be just printed right from your home. Housing. That would be interesting. Housing is so expensive, and I fear that for you, for my Zsters and my millennials that are those late millennials. And housing is so expensive, and many of us don't want that giant house anymore. The tiny home movement's taken off. But this is something interesting. Perhaps this can bring housing to the world. This is a 3D printed home. So that's laying concrete or very industrial strength resin. 24 hours is printed. You're going to see this a lot in Russia and certainly in China. Only 10 grand to build it. Check out those appliances. And that's a mobile printer, can print on site. So that may be incredible for you on those 3D printed homes. Unfortunately, right now, I don't think a lot of our cities would like that because they want you to be in a $400,000 home so they can collect a lot of property taxes from that. But you may look at some innovative cities now. We're in Texas, so we could think down to Brownwood or right past Alvarado, where there's just tremendous amounts of land that, but not too far to commute to Fort Worth. But again, if you're mainly an online business or you're able to do your work online, and yeah, we're in March 2020 in the coronavirus. So what right now, everyone is doing everything online. This may propel us to a much more online life. And so if you live 30, 40 miles away from the city, are able to have a home, of course, was cost $10,000. This is the United States. We'll sell it for $60,000, fully furnished. Still a good price for a home, and might be something to look at and think about in the future. The maturity stage. All right. Yes, it's gone to growth. We look at the flat screen TV, certainly in the maturity stage. Sales are stabilizing. Cost of productions are lower. The more you produce something, the lower the cost should be because you just get better at it. It's the learning curve. And again, I don't need to really amp up a lot of marketing and advertising. I need to keep a strong sales force via retail, a lot of social media ads. But right now, I don't have to create awareness because there's nothing else I can buy right now in the TV world but a flat screen TV. Profits are high. Mainstream adopters, still about the people who have held out forever. I'm never buying this. We'll have to buy this TV. And of course, some of the weaker competitors have dropped out. We know Samsung right now certainly owns this market pretty well, LG, etc. What do we do? What do we do? We want to keep things fresh and fashionable and keep sales, and so we modify the product. All right? There was the iPhone 5 versus the iPhone 6, 7 versus the iPhone 10. New features, quality, creative packaging, modify that promotion. Again, maybe we're really encouraging to switch your brand right in here. That may be the promotion. That's what we see so much in the cell phone market or the cable market, the TV market, etc. Well, come to my brand. The iPad Pro, the big move from Apple when this came out with a few years ago, was they thought, 600 million PC devices. This was back in, 2016, 17, 18, that are 5 years or old. They're going to have to be replaced. And we know that the majority of new Apple products purchased are former PC users. And so that's the market they were going after. What about this? Does it decline? At some point it happens. We new technology comes along, sales. I just have any value to it. I'm not sure you could buy a brand new VHS VCR player at any store. I mean, like a major store. I used to see one at Walmart. One left, I think it was JVC. That they kept it on stock. It hadn't been there in the last year. Yes, you could go to eBay. Yes, you could go to Amazon. But I mean, in a traditional retail store. Because what about all those tapes? The Barney tapes, all the stuff we grew up on, and that we want to watch. You can stream it. That's what. So new technology, disruptive technology has come into declining profits, and so that's what happens when it just becomes very valued. Do we keep it? Well, the strategy is you harvest it. You put nothing into it. You don't advertise. You just keep it on the shelf. And as long as there's a profitability on there, the second there's profit that we know it's gone, it's too expensive even to ship out. Again, maybe it can be sold overseas, maybe it can be sold into a different market. Once that all dries up, we simply just drop it. Interesting question. Can a dead product ever be resurrected? Well, probably the brand can be resurrected. And the product itself, let's see. Converse. If I were to ask how many of you have a pair of Converse shoes, I would say, or ever have had one in the last few years, get a lot of hands raised in class. Remember, Converse is the Chuck Taylor All-Star shoes. Converse owned the market from like the 1920s to about the 1960s. You can still go back and look at NBA professional basketball players wearing Converse. Wearing them to school, your workout. It was a Converse world, and so there we are, 1923. They owned it for 50 years. Well, in the late 70s, Nike comes out. All right, Reebok comes out. Adidas comes out, much stronger in the United States market, and so they didn't do anything to change their design, and so they simply couldn't compete. By 2001, Converse had filed for bankruptcy. And yet you're still wearing a pair. I wonder why. Oh, because Nike bought it in 2003. A newer, younger management team. There's a niche out there, a niche market, loyal artistic self-expression. Let the customers drive the brand, and it brings in about in sales $1.3 billion a year to the Nike Corporation. So yes, a brand can be resurrected. All right, with the right environment and the right type of leadership and direction. What about the Ford? The Ford Ranger that stopped production almost a decade ago, and now it's back into production. Certainly does not look anything like the 1980s or 90s little old Ford Ranger. It's all tricked out. And of course, the Bronco. For those of you who are Bronco fans, there is a cult of Bronco fans that is alive and well and strong throughout the world. And so the new Bronco is now out. I think it's this year is the debut. It may have been last year, but we're pulling it back in. And of course, there was a lot of rumor that the FJ Cruiser, which is the Toyota Jeep, was going to be retooled and remodeled and reproduced. That's still a rumor. But the Supra came back, and the Supra was a great car of the 1980s, and now that you could buy for literally $18,000. And now I think we're just going to transpose that, $80,000 today. So yes, brands can be resurrected and new products can be reintroduced, repositioned, and do very well. That concludes our product development cycle for the marketing mix. And now we're going to go into our next video in pricing.